Okay, welcome back to Naruto Shippuden Anime Review Part 6. You may notice though that look like I'm in a higher chair than I did in my last video a couple days ago. Well, there's a reason for that. There's a screw loose in my chair armrest, and whenever I sit in it, it feels like it's coming apart. So because the screw is loose, I can't sit in it right now, so I'm basically back sitting in the old wood chair. I haven't sat in this thing in a couple years, but doesn't feel like much change with this chair. Now, in the case of what I'm reviewing here, this I'm reviewing the third tail beast appearance arc. Yes, this is an anime original arc, and like in the case of 12 Guardian Ninja, the first two episodes are in fact canon. Yes, the first two are. The rest are complete anime original. There's a little bit of canon in the final episode that mostly is there to set up the very next arc of the series. The first episode is simply put an epilogue for the last arc of the series. For the last arc, basically, Kaku is still alive, despite Naruto using the users of Sengon Shuriken on him, and Naruto can't move because the thing is basically injured him. So it's up to Kakashi to cap him off. Well, basically finish him off. Yep, killing him off, and then of course they bring the body back to the village. Naruto has to go to see Tsunade. And despite the fact he suffered massive injuries, he basically, it's the concept, he's like, I'm fine. And then Sakura's like, yeah, I'll take him to the hospital right away. Yep. And it turns out, though, according to Sakura, and of course Tsunade basically hypothesizes as well, the Rasengan Shuriken is very powerful jutsu. But the thing is, it has the ability to cut off chakra threads inside someone's body so they can't use chakra in that particular area. In the case of Naruto, he did it a handful of times, but if he uses any more, he will lose his ability to use chakra, which means he has to give up being a ninja. Though it doesn't say if he had to give up his dream being Hokage, but he would have to give up being a ninja. Naruto realizes that and decides, thanks to a talk from Jiraiya, that for now, he will not use the Rasengan Shuriken. He does use it again in the Pain arc. Oh yes, he used it. Though there's a good reason for it. I'll get to that when I get to the Pain arc. So, anyways, yes. Pretty much, for this particular arc, we introduced at least about a few new characters. Now, with this particular arc, unlike with 12 Guardian Ninja, which felt very rushed at the very end, this one didn't feel it that very much. I think the only characters may have gotten rewrites is pretty much Garen's new character in this arc. Now, basically, Garen is tasked by Orochimaru. Well, first we have Orochimaru tasking Kabuto to get Garen, who's at one of the hideouts. Apparently, she's part of one of his mini collections. That's what the Leaf Village refers to as. She's a woman with blue hair, wears a green, like kind of like a robe in a way, with the traditional Orochimaru rope, and it's got flowers on it, camellias. It's got a couple of camellias. There's one on her left thigh, on the side of her outfit, and one on the pretty much in the back of her neck and her back. That's where the other one is. The reason for it is not thoroughly explained. It's hinted at because, she just likes the flower. Of course, she's asked by a new character, Yukimaru, who apparently has the ability to control a tailed beast. Yes, though the three-tail himself doesn't. This creature does not show up in episode 101. They take their sweet time. For an arc called three-tail appearance, you probably expect the three-tail turtle to show up a little bit sooner than it did. It didn't show up until halfway through the arc. I mean, I don't know why in the world it took so long, but it did. So, we have Team Kornai, aka Team 8. Now, Kornai can't lead the team because she's on maternity leave. Well, she's on maternity leave because she can have a baby. Okay, fine. If you're curious, though, if she ever takes up being the sensei for this team ever again in the series, the answer is no. Once she becomes pregnant, she stops being their leader. Though they're technically already tuning, though they don't really need to hang around their teacher very much. I mean, if you look at Coronai herself, in this series alone, she does less than she did in the original series. I mean, she pops up now and again. Of course, they found out that she's pregnant with Ashma's child. They don't show the baby itself until like I think it was actually toward the end of the series when they finally had the birth of Korra and Ashma's baby. And Shikamaru was tasked by Ashma to be the baby's teacher, which he does. And of course, Shikamaru is, for now, temporarily written out the series. I mean, he's not in this arc. I mean, once they wrap up the canon stuff with him, he disappears. He does show up at he doesn't do anything much after this. Yes, as far as I can tell for Shikamaru, he doesn't do much of anything until the pain arc of the series. Same with Choji. He does nothing. So, they're tasked, basically, the story for this one is that the original stuff is that an Amu Black Ops has possibly discovered one of Orochimaru's current hideout. It's possibly his current hideout. Did they go to it? No, not really. The way the entrance is to this thing, it looks like it's inside of a well. Where this place is, I don't really know. It's particularly kind of weird. It's somewhere in the land of rice fields. They don't really say where it is. Because that's the interesting thing when it comes to Orochimaru's hideouts, is the fact that where they are is a complete mystery. Only one of his hideouts has ever been discovered in this, actually two, technically, like this arc. Two of his hideouts have been discovered by the Leaf, but he wasn't there. Nope, wasn't there. So, Jiraiya disappears partway into the arc, mainly because of the fact he doesn't come back until his own self-titled arc, which basically I'll get to that in a later video. And he takes Naruto to a hot spring to help heal his arm, which his arm eventually does heal, and he has to learn this water pistol jutsu because he can't use it for Sengon Shuriken because it ended up in the hospital again. So they use toads. Okay, so they try to use this one toad, which apparently they reveal your flashback that this toad actually trained with him during the time skip, which he doesn't like it very much. Apparently, this toad is very much a gay toad. Because even though it's a guy, clearly it's a guy, it's a male toad, but it's got lipsticks. That means this toad is gay. Oh yeah, he's gay. So, they try to use the Kame Jutsu, it doesn't really work at all. So, summon Gamakichi and his brother. Yep. To use this particular jutsu. Though he does this when he tries to start doing it at this hot spring, which he runs to Yukimaru for the first time. He doesn't run to him a little bit later. So they keep trying to do this particular jutsu, and they have to continue with it. And then after Jiraiya leaves, he had to go back, probably because he... My guess is because Jiraiya is not there to teach him, so he has to go back to Hidden Leaf because he probably can't be away from the village very long. The only reason why I think he was allowed because Jiraiya was with him. But I think that the reason why he has to go back because Jiraiya is gone. Okay, so he runs to Konohamaru. Yes, Konohamaru is in this arc very briefly. He's here for about 2 episodes, doesn't do much anything. Yeah, practices a sexy jutsu. And he basically makes a sexy jutsu to 2 women that Jiraiya met in, believe it or not, the previous series. Yes, it was the 2 women he met during the Search for Tsunade arc, except these basically women are naked. Though, basically, he did this basically when he did, like, Cheddar Clones. Though, he got beat up by Mogi, which I thought was hilarious, the fact she beat him up, and then later on, of course, he takes Konohamaru to the training area, which is the same area where he perfected his Wind Style Rasengan his jutsu. So, Gamakichi needs snacks, so Naruto gives Konohamaru some money, buys some snacks. Gamakichi eats them really quickly, just use his tongue, put it in his mouth, spit out the extra stuff, done. And they practice for a while. And it turns out neither one of them can know water shoot, despite the fact these sons of the chief Toad. And Gamakichi reminds Naruto, "You're Pops' henchman." Of course he is, which I thought was kind of hilarious. It's kind of interesting that they brought up that, even though that next time that here's the thing, Boss Toad doesn't appear in the series until the start of the Pain arc. Yeah, it takes him a long time. In the case of Gamakichi and Gamakatsu, this is their first appearance in this particular series, this arc. They do appear in the very next arc of the series, and they pop up a few times over the course of this particular anime, but once the anime is over with, they stop appearing for no reason. They don't really say the reason for it, but they do. They don't. So, Girin's group is made. Of course, Girin, after she has all of the experiments which beat the crap out of each other, and whoever survives becomes her henchman. A very large number of them, though a lot of them pretty much decide to get killed by herself. So there's about 5 left. Basically, you have Renji, a guy with bandages on his belly, who's not very trustworthy person. We have Genjin, a guy who looks like another character that will appear in the very next arc of the series. I'd say a very similar character template. It's very implied that he's in love with Girin. It's later confirmed a little bit later of the reasoning for his close attachment to her. So at least this is something for that character to build. Renji, of course, is just a guy full of himself who really just wants to do his own thing. Yeah, he's a character who's written to be very unlikable, and it's completely true. As for the other 3, well, there is an old man who can shoot basically like a mini machine gun out of his wrist. I do have a theory that this character's template was used for another character who appears later on in the series. Very similar style look, except that he just made him bold. I'll get to that character soon. There's a guy who wears a water suit. Yes, a water suit. And a guy who could use a smoke screen. Basically about 5 people. And they're given a hideout, which looks like a ruined house. A house with no roof. And it's shown the fact this place is not a good place. Yeah, and therefore they use the same line twice in the same episode. This place is a dump. Yeah, I seeing what this place looks like in the anime, I'm like, yeah, if I were Orochimaru, I would get these guys a better hideout, or at least pick somebody he knows Earth style jutsu, or at least something to that nature. Put a freaking roof on this house. Yeah, there's a roof there, but it takes only half the house. And even that part of the roof is not exactly fully attached because there's holes in it. So, yeah, 5 guys in a cramped space during a rainstorm. Yep. Now, in case of Gary and Yukimaro, let's say their relationship is very well handled in this particular arc. Yeah, it's by far one of the few pieces of writing in this arc that's actually very well done. Mm-hmm. And it slowly develops over the course of this arc that Girin, basically, despite being sort of being a bloodthirsty assassin, actually it's revealed she regrets her past. Yeah, she regrets it. This thing is not hinted at very early on, but over the course of this thing, she starts to regret it. And she kind of starts to have feelings for Yukimaro. Now, I don't know if this is feelings of a motherly love or sexual love. They don't particularly say. It's just that they're very close. Because here's the thing. Now, Yukimaro is, well, from the look of him, he looks like he's about 12, 13 years old. Girin looks like she's in her mid to late 20s, I'd say. Because they show her flashback look like she was a teenager when she had, of course, it's revealed that she actually had to massacre Yumaro's village in order to put the Sound Village there. I'm like, really? So you had to tear down a village to put your hidden ninja village there, Orochimaru. Wow. Okay. At least that kind of gives an explanation of how the Sound Village even started. Yeah, it's like, when it comes to Sound Village, it seems like the only way to explore it is in anime original content. Because I don't think Kishimoto himself had time to deal with that. So, they brought to a lake, a very suspicious lake, which is later revealed this lake has the 3-tailed beast in it. Why the heck it's here is never explained. Whereas Jurjiki is, That's actually explained later on what happened to his last one, which turns out he was actually one of the Kage. As for what happened with him, I won't explain that until I get to it, because it's kind of odd what happened with this guy, where he died, and then this particular monster just automatically roaming free. Yeah. So at first, it's just teammate with Kakashi battling Gurren people, and they're trapped inside this jewel. And of course, Naruto overhears about the fact that Sai and Sakura and Yamato are going on the mission, but he basically volunteers. He says this is not about Sasuke. He just basically wants to help out, and he also says he knows the wind style for Sharingan Shuriken is off limits, but he's got another jutsu, and he shows off the water style jutsu. He runs to Uchimaru a few times over the course of this arc, and he just wants to give the hidden leap because he doesn't want to use his own power. They make a Jirajiki, but nope, not really. So he's able to get to the special like jewel prison that Giran made thanks to a water pistol, and of course everybody's shocked that he did this. And in case you're curious though, does he ever do this again after this? Well, he does it one more in this arc, and then that's it for this particular jutsu. Because, excuse me, that's the thing with this particular jutsu. It only appears just a couple times in this one arc, and then he never uses it again. Yeah, that's the thing with Naruto. In this series, he develops several jutsu. Yeah, a lot of who he doesn't really use much after like a couple of times. At least the Rasengan Shuriken he actually uses after this, though he doesn't use it into the pain arc, which I'll get to that later on. So after freeing him, of course, Hinata is briefly imprisoned, and then she's later freed, thanks to, of course, Kamikaze retrieving her, and of course, sitting there, of course, she got distracted by a fly, though she's able to break out of the crystal prison, the Gira period. And it turns out the way she's able to survive this is she basically kind of activates all her chakra points at once, and that's somehow protect and put sort of like put her own shell, and that's why she's able to survive. Despite like normal people wouldn't survive. So, and they also test out the fact that Shino, during the course of his arc, develops a resistance to this crystal style jutsu, which is what Giran uses. And then after that, of course, they set up Yamato's house when they set up their base. Yeah, as far as I can tell, this is the second time it's actually appeared in the series. Yeah, Yamato's house that he builds. Yeah, it appeared in the Tatsuki Bridge arc, where it didn't really appear. I think it appeared like 2 or 3 times. That's it. In this arc, it appeared at least about half this arc, this particular house appeared in. And it's great the fact it appears here. But as far as I can remember, I think this is the last unofficial time this house is seen in the series. Because I don't think that Yamato ever uses this thing ever again. Not that I could think of, no. Because Naruto does go on another mission after what happens in season 7, but he stays at whoever basically he's hired, he stayed at the client's house. But as for Yamato's house, well, as far as I can tell for that, as far as I can remember, I don't think he ever appears again in the series. No, I don't think he ever does, which is kind of interesting. Yamato still appears in the series even after this arc, but after Fourth Ninja War, his role is once Naruto, like during the course of the Fourth Ninja War, by that point, his role is pretty much reduced. He's pretty much done. Yeah, though they do a lot of development with him later on in the series when it comes to Kakashi. So, and of course, Naruto gets away from his duties when he's patrolling, and then of course he's caught up by Kakashi and Yamato, and then Sakura catches up with this. Is so hilarious. She proceeds to beat the crap out of him as punishment for abandoning his duty. Yep, and then of course, then we have more reinforcements show up thanks to having Ino, Rock Lee, and Tenten show up. My guy briefly appears in this arc for like 1 episode. As far as I could tell for the next arc, I don't think he appears next arc. No, I don't think my guy appears again after this until the Pain arc, which I think he does play a role in that, a very small role. So So, and also Suzune shows up as well. I looked up a line. She's apparently a Joni somehow. Also, she has this thing where she has very long sleeves for attire. When she rolls them all completely down, it apparently covers up her hands for some reason. Why in the world she wears a shirt that has very long sleeves is never explained. She just does, and she's there to have Ino, Hinata, and Sakura, two of whom have to be medical ninja. This have a Hinata does not, but she's got good chakra control. 10 doesn't, and her job to do is to steal the three-tailed beast. The other two teams are meant to take out the villains. And then basically, well, Kiba has a rematch with them after beating them before. And then, of course, spend one more time after this. And they have one more fight with them, though this time it's because they got the curse mark on them. Like, somehow Kabuto somehow can give them the curse mark despite the fact that he's not a Orochimaru. Somehow it's never actually explained. And they can become more powerful, and eventually they're finally defeated. Gunjo, of course, is defeated by Kakashi after protecting Girin. So I think there's a lot of big action this whole arc. Eventually, of course, we have the whole thing wrapped up, and meanwhile we have Toby and Datara show up. Of course, Datara was curious what's under a mask. A lot of viewers have wondered what's under the mask, though we never find out what's under the mask until much later on in the series because Toby is a mystery. Yeah, but Naruto does meet Toby in the very next arc of the series during Itachi Pursuit. And as what Datara does this whole arc, well, he does nothing. Shows up a few times. Toby just watches a lot of this big battle. Eventually, the Ten Tails is defeated thanks to Naruto using fire to basically a total bomb to defeat him. That stops his rampage. Yukimura basically loses his ability after the Ten Tails defeated. Yeah, that's what happened to him after this. It's later shown that Ganja did survive his attack with Kakashi, and also at one point it looked like Girin died during a battle with a sort of a semi-resurrected Renji. Yeah, with them surviving. Yeah, it's not thoroughly explained. It's somehow these three did survive, and they all get written off as basically doing their own thing. And Naruto's perfectly fine with it because Yukimura's back with Girin. And here's kind of the thing about Girin, Yukimura, and Genja. They never appear in the series again until the very last episode of season 20. That's the next time they appear. So they won't return again for quite some time. Yeah, they show up in the final episode that adapts from the manga. Because the last season of the series adapted from at least 3 light novels. 2 of them were released here, the third one was never released here. I'll get to that later on when I get to season 21. But in the case of this arc altogether, it's a really good arc. And interesting enough, this is probably by far the first time at this point in the series where you have more than a couple teams involved with fighting the villains of the series. This one involves mostly 3 teams. It's most of the Hidden Leaf 11 here. Except that the only people who are not in this arc, who are basically fighting the Ten-Tailed Beast, is Shikamaru, Neji, and Choji. That's it. Just those 3. Yeah, surprisingly, it's assumed possibly they're on another mission. Shikamaru's probably just resting along with Choji. But as what Neji is doing in this arc, never explicitly revealed. Because the thing is, after the opening arc of the series of Shippuden, he appears briefly at the start of the first episode of the very next arc. After that, Neji does nothing until he pops up in... I think it's in, let's see, he pops up in Itachi Pursuit, but he doesn't do very much until the Folk Ninja War. I'm glad Rock Lee is here because he gets a chance to do some fighting, which is always great to see him fight. It's just that when it comes, this is just my opinion, Rock Lee is my second favorite male character in the series, but it seems as though a lot of the time, whenever they try to have episodes focus on him, it's not always very interesting to watch. I mean, it's always great to see him, and him kicking butt all the time. But a lot of the time, when it comes to episodes focused on him, it's just not interesting. It's okay at best. It's not all that good. And eventually the tail base is taken by Data and Toby after taking out the Anbu Black Ops sent to relieve the Hidden Leaf Ninja. And that's it. Now, in case you're curious though, did I feel as though there was any major rushing this arc or any rewrites? Well, I would say the only characters that probably get heavily rewritten are those three guys who work for Giran who are not Renji. Renji himself, I kind of feel as though he probably went through some rewrites. Giran, I don't think they altered her very much. And in case you're wondering about the end of this particular arc, well, I don't think they rushed this arc. No, this arc was very well paced. Yeah, the pacing was great. It didn't feel rushed like it did with 12 Ninja. Yeah, that was the problem with 12 Ninja, was the fact that a lot of the stuff of this arc was never explained. This one, I'd say a good chunk of it was. In the case of those henchmen, it's assumed you could say that Orochimaru did this stuff to them. Okay, fine. Renji has implied he's got a sister, but it's not really dealt upon. As for Ginja, of why his attachment to Giran, it's because she was nice to him when he basically, after going through a round of Orochimaru's experiments. He basically is seems like he's an Earth style user who apparently could turn to mud. It's not thoroughly explained. Yeah, my guess is the reason why they had what happened with Yukamaru is probably because he's not in the next arc of the series, and plus he's an original character. But at least they didn't kill him off. I mean, it's kind of like what they did with Sora. Well, at least in the case of Sora, they actually saw him go off. This guy, he just basically left off screen mostly, and we see him briefly with look like Giran, and that's it you see for him. And I would say this arc has a good amount of development for Naruto, definitely. As for everybody else, not very well. Probably the most interesting thing that happened in this arc, and I'm surprised Kishimoto never made this canon, was having Sai and Shino interact. Yeah. And the fact that Sai knew more about Shino than freaking Naruto did. Well, there's a good reason for that. I mean, Shino points out, you were an Amu Black Ops, so of course you would know about me. He's like, it's a shame that a complete stranger knows more about me than someone I've known for years. That is completely true because here's the thing. Naruto doesn't really interact with Shino very much at all. It's very rare he does. Shino is a good character. He's voiced by Derek Stephen Pierce, who does a fantastic job voicing him. I've never met him, but I'd say he does a really good job voicing the character. And as far as I can tell, he's still voicing him, even with Boruto right now. Even though that by the time they have the graduation of the main characters, he occasionally appears after. He appears like small appearance here and there. Yeah. But not much to say about this arc. It's good. And can't wait to do the very next arc. It won't happen for a bit. Because I'm going to be starting. I'm definitely gonna review it soon because I'm also jumping to JoJo's Adventures briefly going back between that and this series. Of course, next one I'm going to do is definitely going to be a Itachi Pursuit arc. Now, at the Aztec War, I'm still going to do that, but I'm gotta read one more book before I start watching the series. But I'm going to do 2 more videos after this one, and then I'm going to watch Black Clover today. And after that, back to JoJo for a bit until I come back to the series for the Itachi Pursuit arc and the Kashkai Day. I'll probably discuss those episodes in part 7. Yep. But until you see you next video, bye.